Forever Classic. Bing. Welcome to the Forever Classic podcast. This is Joe, one of your excellent hosts, and I'm joined by even more excellent hosts, Alex and Zach. How you guys doing?
Hey, man. How is things over there in the warmth?
Things are great down south from the great north.
Things are fantastic over here near the coast.
I bet.
I mean, kind of. I mean, I've woke up with frost, but then, by midday, it's like almost 80.
A mere 2 hours south of Alex, it is 20 degrees warmer.
Yep.
Something like that.
I live in a winter wonderland in the icy wastelands of Minnesota.
Did you guys like my startup sound?
Yeah.
Like if we were a video game console, we got to have a startup sound.
That's a really good way to try to get an asset for that, actually. Just make us the PlayStation sound effect, but different.
Well, let's hear your versions.
I got nothing.
You guys are terrible. I'm trying to start a good bit here, and you guys are pooping all over it.
Done.
Crisp.
Just crack a beer, but it has to be a specific beer.
Zach's sound is just sucking on a vape.
I was thinking, I don't know what I would call our sound. I mean, the first thing that pops into my head would be like classic, like some sort of like gamey, spritey sound, like not anything in particular, and then
it's got the like bit crunch effect on it.
Yeah, then like that crunch like sound effect to end it.
We should just make our like voice synthesizer from like the NES synths or something, and just like really press that sample down.
I've really thought about buying a talk box.
I was thinking about just startup sounds the other day. I'm like, what would our startup sound be? And
we need more assets.
That's
generally,
what I came up with my mouth. Just this sort of pleasant.
I ponder a lot on two things: our new game screen sound and our lobby sound.
I think that there's a lot of opportunity. There's a couple of people I've flagged on Twitter where I'm like, when I have the opportunity, maybe you're on the commission list, because I really like some of the work I see out there. Artists are incredible. I love artists.
They're pretty good. You know what's also pretty good? Our writers.
Yeah. Writers are pretty good. I'm a writer. I'm pretty good. I like to think. Anywho.
How should people support writers?
Oh, man, there's a lot of different ways, but in today's economy, the best way is to just make a donation directly. And you can do that through a lot of different ways. Through us here at Forever Classic Games, you can hit our tipping services, which are at the bottom of pretty much every writer's bio. So if you're reading an article and you're like, you know what, that was pretty good, I'm going to toss them a $5. You can do that. Most of our writers have either a PayPal or something equipped. Forever Classic has a PayPal. We have a Patreon that is in desperate need of revamping, but we have some priorities that are taking hold right now. And then also, if you want to just send us an email about some sort of inquiry, or if you want to get your game reviewed, or if you want, have some news for us or whatever, hit us up at contact@foreverclassicgames.com, and we'll get to you as soon as we can.
Excellent as always, Alex. Thank you for letting people know how they can support us and what we do here.
Hey, this is why we pay me the big bucks.
The big zero. We all get nothing. In fact, we all spend a decent amount of money to be a part of this.
Yeah, less than most, which is great.
It's a fun hobby, at least, to get together and I guess
it's really an excuse for us to get together every couple weeks and just hang out.
Yeah, why spend, $20 a week at the bar getting together when we can pay one monthly fee to Riverside and record a podcast every other week.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. Sounds like a good deal to me.
Oh yeah.
So
do you know what else sounds like a good deal?
Peeking at Geeks.
Yeah. I couldn't come up with anything for it.
You were really swinging, hoping I'd make the connect for you.
Every now and again, you just got to pick up that baseball bat and go for it, man.
And just crack it against something and hope it's a home run.
Do you know it's probably a home run?
Peeking
John
at
Wick
Geeks?
4. Tell us about
but
it,
yeah.
man.
That does bring us to the Geek Peek. Geek Peek. Peeking at them geeks. Just a quick little look at the things that the three of us are into. There's one thing to share that piqued our interest the most the last couple weeks since our last recording. And for me, I got to tell you, it was a real close running against two movies I went and saw in the theaters. And I'm only going to talk about one. John Wick 4. My
very exciting.
goodness. What a great movie. It's been a few days since I've seen it, and I'm still like, what a fun movie-going experience.
So how does that compare to the other three? Because so far, they're all great, but I would
It's
still consider
still-
the first one the best.
I think the first one is the most intriguing and interesting, and then the rest of them is just sort of just like piling on top of that and expanding this world of, like, the best comparison I've made is watching John Wick 4 reminded me a lot of watching the final season of Hannibal. It is so
Interesting.
over the top pretentious in its presentation. It's like a stunt coordinator made an art film. Like the words and language that they use, the artistic like shots and lighting that they provide to it, and it's all sold completely serious, completely like raw, real drama, and it is some of the most over the top nonsense, like, and awesome fight scenes and action sequences you've ever seen in a movie, like in a franchise, and all four of them are fantastic. If you have not seen the John Wick movies and you like action movies, you are missing out. And one thing I noticed in watching this movie, and this carries through from the first movie, is every time John Wick throws something, I laugh. I don't know why, but there's just something so funny to me about this guy who's like a trained killer, who's just like super efficient, calculating, coordinating, sheer force of will, just taking down dudes with like martial arts and precision aiming with guns. And then he takes a gun and just full on hucks it into a guy's face.
It never gets old.
It's hilarious, and guns are scary heavy sometimes.
True, it would hurt like a sumbitch.
But like there's a part in John Wick 4 where he picks up a weapon. He picks up two of them actually, and I'm like, oh, no way they're gonna do this. I don't want to spoil nothing for anybody, but he takes one of them and just chucks it, and I just laughed. I was the only person in the theater who laughed, which I felt a little bad about, but the fact that he has these two weapons and the first instinct he has is to just beam someone in the face with one of them is so funny.
That's incredible.
But there's also just like a really satisfying like ending to it. Like John Wick 4 ends really well, I think. And Donnie Yen's character is mwah.
Is that the guy who played Ip Man?
Yes.
Yeah. Dude, those movies are cool too.
Yeah.
Those are so good.
But
Wing Chun keeps showing up and stuff.
But yeah, Donnie Yen's character is great. He's great, and I'm glad they gave him a chance to really shine in this movie. But yeah, there's just like, the final season of Hannibal is like they're in Europe chasing Hannibal Lecter, and they're going to like art museums, and everything's over the top pretentious. They're drinking wine, and everything's high society and artsy fartsy. And John Wick 4 is that, but people are getting hit by cars.
Incredible.
What about you, Alex? What's your geek peek?
I mean, speaking of crazy over the top action heroes, one of the classics is back. Leon
and
Scott
fours?
Kennedy. Dude, Resident Evil 4 is awesome, and I'm kind of bummed that I haven't had the chance to like finish it, but I kind of love the fact that I haven't finished it because there's still more game for me to play. I've put like 20 hours into it, and I'm still like in the castle. It's such an improvement's maybe not the right word for it. It's such a cool title in the series if you're a fan of all these remakes, or if you're just a fan of the original, or just generally, like, this is not it's a good starting point for fans. It's got everything you would want in it. It's the complexity of everything. It's got tons of replay value. Like, Resident Evil 4 is absolutely one of the coolest games on the PS5 right now. And I cannot recommend it enough, especially if you love that first one.
Oh, you've been playing it on PS5?
I have, and it's awesome. The 3D audio is exceptionally cool. That might be one of the biggest improvements to it as well, because using the 3D audio, and this is the same for Resident Evil 2 remake, you can really figure out like not only where enemies are, but you can kind of start picking out like a lot of different atmosphere details. And it's really cool how they added a stealth element into this, so I could like use sound to figure out exactly where people were, sneak up behind them, and maybe take out one early or something.
Yeah. One video I saw, they heard an enemy through a wall.
Mm-hmm.
So when they went through the door, they knew to look for something, and there was somebody hiding inside of a closet and came out, and they were ready to like take them out because they could hear them as they passed by the wall breathing. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Did you buy it physically?
I did not. I got it digitally because it was one of those situations where I just wanted to start playing as soon as possible to try to get a review out there. Of course, that didn't go through because the game is huge, and I moved recently, so that's been top of mind. And basically, if I'm not working, I'm rearranging stuff in our new place.
Yeah, otherwise I'd say I'd love to check it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I recommend. We were also, even though we didn't get that early access review copy, the folks running the PR did send me a Steam copy. So once I actually like get through the PS5 version, I'm gonna test it out on Steam Deck, figure out what the PC version feels like, because I have really enjoyed these remakes on PC a little more than consoles, which is weird for me. But just the way you shoot with it, it works really well on a mouse and keyboard. I don't know what to tell you.
With the Steam Deck, it'd be interesting to see how the motion controls with the accelerometer.
Yeah,
Just
I
like
haven't
with the
tried
Wii
any
U or
of that.
Switch.
Mm-hmm. Because the Wii is like one. If you're into Resident Evil 4, one of the best versions people will tell you is the Wii version.
It's so good.
And I desperately await the PSVR 2 version of this remake because I think it's going to be incredible.
But with the Steam Deck, it reminds me mostly of like the Wii U gamepad.
Yeah. And
playing Twilight Princess HD with the motion tracking for like dialing in your shots with the bow felt so good. And if that translates well to like a Resident Evil 4 experience, I could see that being super enjoyable to dialing in those shots. And even more doubly so, just like in the Wii version, if something scares you, and you jump, you're missing those shots.
But generally, I've had Resident Evil on the brain for the past like 4 weeks, and I did recently get the Steam Deck, which Joe knows because I sent it to his place because I was moving. So I have the Steam Deck. I downloaded pretty much all of the remakes because I own them on Steam, and I also recently got a CRT, so I've got my GameCube versions of the Resident Evil titles hooked up there. So I will be playing a lot of Resident Evil in the coming weeks. Yeah. And is it something I can stream? We'll see. I'm set up to do it here. But if that's something people are interested in, just let us know in the Discord or something.
Sweet, dude. I'm glad you're really enjoying that game. I know you were excited about it, so I'm glad to hear that it's meeting expectation, especially since it seemed like 3 fell a little flat for you.
It did. 3 was just really different. I didn't play the original, but it was like I finished it in maybe 5 hours, and there wasn't hardly much to do in the replay. Which is funny because when I talked to Reese about this, he felt the opposite. He's like, I loved doing the like time trials and finding the collectibles and stuff in RE3. But for me, I want those like extra modes. I want the extra characters, the new guns. That's what I look for. And typically Resident Evil provides. So it's awesome to see that they went back to that for 4.
And it seems like with the remake of 4, they sort of like use player knowledge against them. So people who know the game really well, they'll change like one thing. And
they mess with player expectation exceptionally well. There's a moment where this is not even like a comparison point. Like I was just sneaking up on a guy, and as I was sneaking up to him, he walked around this other route, but behind a pillar was a second guy that I didn't know about, and so he hit me, and then everything went to shit. But it was it's a really cool experience, especially if you're like deeply familiar with those games. Because they extend certain parts, they change up a couple things here and there to make things more enjoyable, or they add a different puzzle or whatever.
Makes it feel fresh for even veteran players, which is cool.
by a
That's nice.
really large margin. And the one knock I have against it right now, as far as like compared to the original, is I was deeply terrified of the wolves in the first Resident Evil 4 remake.
I thought you were about to complain about Ashley's jorts.
No, but so the wolves they look very similar to the dog that you save in the beginning of the game in the original Resident Evil 4.
Oh,
so whenever you first are confronted with the wolves, you're like, it just looks like a regular dog, but he's mad. And then it cracks open and all these tentacles and stuff come out. And so my first encounter with the wolves is one of the most memorable horror moments in my entire gaming career. Now they're more challenging as far as how they move and how they attack, but they just don't look as scary because they look more monstrous, which is strange. Because I like the fact that it looked like a normal thing turning into a monster. Now it always looks like a monster.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if it started monstrous and changes, and you're like, oh, well, that's not, I can take this out. It's not really a threat to me. But if it's like takes a normal thing and transforms it, then you're like, ooh, this could be me.
It really, like, the original design played with our perceptions of anatomy, like, as far as a dog or a wolf is concerned.
That's an interesting observation.
Yeah, this one's got a weird silhouette. If you looked at the model, and it wouldn't spoil anything for you, like, it is definitely different, and it is just not nearly as scary. Other designs are very scary, though, so it kind of balances out. But that's the one area where I'm like, that was better in the original, but that's, like, the one instance so far.
Shall we move the camera over, pan on over, take a peek at Zach's Geek?
Mine is that I built a computer. So we built.
Did you build PC4? Because I watched John Wick 4. Alex played Resident Evil 4. So please tell me you built PC4.
I built PC half of 4.
Oh.
Well, you built a PC4.
Yes.
Oh, someone.
Yes.
So we got there. We did it.
So
we did it, boys. Roll credits.
Yes. But yeah, so we built Toast PC finally over this past week. We had a power supply issue where it just started and then just died.
That is a terrifying problem because you don't know until you replace it whether or not it also screwed up other things.
Yeah, I was real big worried. But it was fine. There was a Best Buy down the road that had a 1,000-watt power supply, so I just rolled down the road.
You
and
unfortunately
grabbed it.
need those bigger supplies now with the newer graphics card. I had to upgrade when I upgraded from the 2060 to the 3070.
Yeah, I future-proofed myself apparently, and I have a 1,000-watt in my current one.
Nice.
It's only a bronze 80, but still it's a fucking 1,000-watt, and I didn't think that was important until recently.
Yeah, it's unusual that you went that far because it's a little overkill.
I'm running a 1050. It doesn't even require its own power. So when I go to change, I'm going to have to take it apart and clean it. Like, give it some good cleaning. And I'm probably going to put that into my new unit and use the 850 that we had. We just sent it back for a replacement.
Nice.
And use it as this computer's new power supply because it doesn't need even 850.
Right. Do you have enough parts left over to build like a server rig for like Minecraft or something?
What I was actually going to do, because all my shit's pretty much out of date in the computer. I built it with older parts in 2017, 18. So I'm just looking at completely buying a new set. And that's coming from the fact that I didn't get paid for a month when I first got my newer promotion for work. Because they paid an old pay card.
That seems
there was
problematic.
But I forgot it existed. I put it in my fucking wallet and I let the card like completely expire. So I just got a replacement and was like, oh yeah, there's like fucking $4,000 on this card. I might as well,
So back to the PC. What's the goal with that? Are we playing some Destiny 2? Like, what are we doing with it?
That was the big goal. Is now we got it hooked up, running, everything's smooth. But she has a 4K TV, so she wanted to be able to do something in 4K, and that being Destiny. We're just having the problem with it doesn't really recognize it very well when we run it as a TV, and won't let the aspect ratios be right. But when we tell it to recognize it as a monitor, it works fine. But we can't use HDR.
TVs are super weird when it comes to being used as a monitor. There are some settings that you might be able to turn off in the TV, some progressive scan stuff or whatever that might help it register or overscan.
We don't have any of that.
Oh.
Yeah, TVs are all like, it really depends on the brand of the TV and how it receives signals and all that stuff, and it can really not be a frustrating experience using a TV with a PC.
It's a little wild. When we had it working for like a minute, the color depth in it was fucking phenomenal. It was so fucking good. And that's what we wanted, was to be able to play, not have loading hell anymore. And, slowly move ourselves into PC gaming space. Because at this point, like, we have a group of friends, but most of the stuff we play with them is cross-play. And with the advent of them being able to open parties from Discord and PS5 together, we can still just sit and chat and not have to use PlayStation. So
yeah, that's cool.
Very cool.
And this is
finally
like,
got to test it, and it was really, really, really simple.
and you've built PCs before, right?
Yeah, I built mine that I'm using now. I haven't touched it in fucking years because it didn't really need anything other than a RAM addition.
Right.
Yeah, other than that, like, they're easy to put together. A little confusing for some new stuff. Mostly me just being like, I don't want to fucking touch anything with my bare hands. Nothing.
That brings us to our topic for today's episode.
Oh my.
Movement in video games is exceptionally important for most games. It's arguable that maybe less important in like a puzzle game or something. But moving from point A to point B, whether it's from the start of a level to the end of a level or across an open world map, how you get from point A to point B is super important, because simply moving is one of the most important aspects of the gameplay. So how do you make that fun? How do you make that interesting and exciting and engaging? And so today we're going to talk about video game traversal and our highlights and our favorite modes of transportation in video games, and games that have, and particularly maybe even certain studios that have really nailed down enjoyable movement and travel in video games.
And while this discussion is really more geared towards like our perception of it, it's not necessarily something that we would point to as like game dev advice, except for the fact of like, here's some things that are really cool that you might want to emulate, because even the simplest of jumps is a whole calculation of like inertia and movement. Like, just Sonic's jump alone is such an interesting thing to dissect, like piece by piece, and see the code and how it all moves. And
then even comparing it to Mario's movement and jump.
Right.
Both are fun and enjoyable, but for very different reasons. And there's a lot of games that did it bad, didn't get it, despite the fact that they came out after both Sonic and Mario. Like
movement is, what I'm saying is, movement is a very hard thing to do in game dev, from what I've gathered, and I have a ton of respect for people that nail it. Yeah.
And it's not easy, but it is important.
Yes.
So it's like, but I thought it would be a fun topic to kind of dig into, because I was playing a game recently and I was like, man, just moving in this game is pretty fun. And like, what other games make moving travel fun? Because I was playing Sunset Overdrive, and you spend a lot of time just grinding on rails and power lines and the edges of buildings and bouncing off of cars and bushes and like doing alley-oops off of light poles and stuff in that game, because the whole point is to constantly be in motion while you're taking out like the zombies that are chasing you. And I was just like, man, this movement is so slick and so fun, because as you're moving, just getting from point A to point B, you're trying to strategize your route, staying on this path, staying on this rail grind. If I jump here, I can bounce off of that car, hit that grind for a little bit, and then hop off to the other side of the building, bounce off that awning onto that third rail, and get to my destination. And just the movement is fun enough that I don't really even consider the fast travel options.
Right.
And there's definitely been a few games like that where just moving around is fun enough that even though fast travel exists, the only time I did it was to get the achievement.
Right. And we're going to cover a really broad range of different movement types from across gaming's history, because that's how we do it here at Forever Classic Games. But there's definitely, there's so many games that we won't be able to cover that have incredible movement. And if you have one that's really notable, get in touch with us, because we'd love to see it. Because I personally have always loved movement in games as well, especially the, mastery of these movements, right? And things like Quake, where people are bunny hopping and just cruising through levels at top speeds. That is fascinating to me.
Manipulating systems in unintended ways to create new forms of movement is interesting too. But just even I would say a studio that's really nailed it down for me anyway is Insomniac. They have really, I think that might be where they start with some of their games, is because every game I play, I'm just like, man, just getting around is so good.
Yeah, and that's been a core part of their entire experience, I would argue, because Spyro is one of their earlier titles, and I love just running around as a little dragon. It feels, and I think that was kind of what they were going for, that I've seen in various documentaries and stuff, is they wanted to get down a four-legged character.
Not many had been done before.
No, and it worked super well, and that carries through with the remakes that are also exceptionally well made.
Yep. What are some of the standout things for you guys? What games have traversal options that really stood out to you and made you go, wow, every game that is in this vein should really try to do something similar or think about it in this way from now on?
So, I mean, for me, jumping on the same topic I was on earlier, Destiny's got a bunch of weird movement in it. So each of the characters have a unique feel for how they move. Titan's got basically, leg boosters. Warlocks have this funky little jump glide, where you just glide until you stop, but it's not as good as, an accurate kind of jump control as, a Titan has. And then a Hunter just has hops. They just, basically have air double jump. Or triple jump if you have a special boot on. But with the addition of Lightfall, they added Strand, and one of the base Strand powers for every class gets this, your quote-unquote grenade power is a grapple. And you can grapple enemies with it, so you pull yourself to them and you can punch them real hard, which is fantastic. But you can just grapple the air and make an anchor out of nothing and swing yourself. So
that seems really similar to kind of what they implemented in Monster Hunter Rise, how you could pin it to the air because you had the bug, and then you could swing from that point, rather than being restricted to certain physical locations.
Yeah. Now, for most, so generally you have one use of it until your grenade recharges, and then you can do it again. But then you get, options with the Hunter class specifically, because once they make a tether anchor and you grapple from it, that anchor stays there.
Oh.
And if you, they have some powers that you can stack with your class, and when you grapple an anchor that's already made, you get your grenade energy refunded.
Oh.
So you do something to where you get 2 grenades, and then you use one to create the point, and you keep grappling that point, and it keeps refunding your energy, and you build up your second one. And then you can make another new anchor point somewhere else and repeat. And you can basically infinitely climb with this.
I have seen people get into some wacky places on Twitter and D2 so far.
Yeah, there's a really hard spot that's been around for a couple years called the Galaxy Pools. It's an unused asset. And you have to do 3 different out of bounds techniques that are hard to string together to weasel your way into a place you're not supposed to get, and get up so high that the game just kind of pulls you into a new zone. And then you're just in this floating platform with a pool in it overlooking a galaxy, and there's nothing else. You're a
cool place to have a beer.
Yeah, and it's prestigious for people who like to get out of bounds, because getting there was really hard before, because you had to do the sparrow fly trick where you jump up in the air, get on your sparrow, and rotate it 90 degrees, and it would swing you upwards slightly. And you could do that 2 or 3 times, jump off, use your jump, resummon your sparrow, and repeat. And you would do this weird fly that was extra technical. But now you can do it with Strand, with the Hunter, specifically a lot easier. It still takes forever because it's a fucking long way out. Way the fuck out of bounds. But it's really, really cool. And then you get other things pre this and still with it, people who find ways to move faster. So like on computer, they have typically the classes have like a high jump, a strafey jump where you can kind of move around a little easier. But then they have one that's at least for the Titans called catapult jump. So you get an initial burst of a jump until your feet touch the ground again, but you don't go as high or far in control. But you can make a macro on the computer to where it will just, every time you tap it, it'll do the double tap. So you get 2 quick catapults and can touch the ground. And then every time you tap the button, you're doing this like faster and faster and faster and faster. Then you can do it with your hands. So you're like skipping just.
So it's an evolution of the bunny hop in Quake.
Yeah, it's a catapulting bunny hop, and it's hilarious. But then they've also taken that to a couple more levels with other class like abilities and swords, because swords give you a little bit of a lunge.
Mm-hmm.
So they have some things where you can do this, like you start to do a technique that will like propel you into like a down slam, but using your sword at the right time with it freaks out the system. So instead of slamming down, you swing the sword with all that momentum and launch out.
Whoa.
And I mean fucking launch.
Cool.
So people use it instead of having to traverse like really long parts of things where it's like, okay, we have to get all the way around this big chasm by like going through these puzzles and this wall and this like jumpy section. And they're like, fuck it.
Fuck those
Going right
puzzles.
here and I'm launching my ass all the way across this whole fucking circle with my sword.
Hand me my yeehaw sword.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you get so much momentum, like, you have to control your end. Like, you have to use that ability and actually slam the ground at the end safely, or you hit the wall and die because you're going so fast.
But back to your original Strand thing, I think that there are a few things cooler than a grappling hook in a video game.
Especially
I would
with,
argue
like, good
that
freedom.
Adding a grappling hook instantly makes your game better if you do it right.
I would agree with that in a sense that, like, modern games have implemented it so much better. Like, back in the day, playing, like, Ocarina of Time or even, like, Twilight Princess, when you get the grappling hook,
You just kind of zip from one place to
it's
another.
certain points and things that like you're pretty limited in what it is. But you get, like, the grapple in Monster Hunter Rise where you can sort of just chain it a couple of ways and use it as an additional dodge.
Yep.
And you can, like, gather resources to get a bonus one for a little bit, so you can have 3 or 4 instead of just 2. And, like, they really open up the world a lot with some of the more recent Monster Hunters. And the movement in Rise is combined. Not only do you get the grappling hook, but you get to ride your dog.
Yep.
And you get to ride monsters.
Yep.
Like, they did so many movement changes in Rise to just speed up getting to the monsters that it's a little bit insane now how fast you can just, like, fly across the map to get places.
Yeah, if you understand movement systems, there's a lot you can pull off in Monster Hunter. But one of the more recent things that... The main reason I even played this game, I would argue, because Halo Infinite came out, me and Zach had a rip-roaring time with it at first. And the reason that I was so compelled with it was because of the grappling hook. That's a fun grappling hook.
It really was.
Did
That thing
Doom
was really
Eternal
silly.
also introduce some sort of grapple hook?
There's
Yes.
you can upgrade your super shotgun to get a grappling hook. You can't just like hit it onto points, you hit it onto enemies. And so
Okay.
you basically pull yourself to the enemy, and there's a couple different interesting movement
I thought
things
there was
you
a
could do with
platforming
it.
thing where you would, like, launch yourself or, like, get to places.
I don't think you use the grappling hook for platform, but it's been a hot minute since I've
Okay.
played Doom Eternal, and I love that game. It's so cool. One of these days I'll revisit it for all the DLC stuff that I just didn't get around to.
Yeah. So before we take off entirely, I really want to share the 2 fun things about the Strand grapple that I remembered as we were finishing. One was the fact that it can grapple 2 things that move. So you can shoot a rocket and grapple to your rocket and just
Oh
ride
shit.
it. Because it won't go away until the rocket explodes. You just are just like hung on to it, just like, yeah!
That is some Halo stuff if I ever did see. That's awesome.
And to build off of that, you can anchor to your buddy who's also doing it and just make this anchor line just fucking eating through the air.
This is what Fast and the Furious movie is it where they, like, grapple
Turn
the
the car into a-
helicopter?
Oh, it was one of the more recent ones.
Yeah,
It was
and they've got
Fast
like
8 or
6
something.
cars trailing and trying to keep this helicopter from taking off.
Yep.
was
And
a
then the
dumb
other
movie.
thing, some people found out they got on top of like a big open tower and stood in a triangle and grappled each other. Because it pulls you, it started to make them go into this infinite circle. Just
Harness
think
that
it's
Super
energy.
fun. But there's a lot of boomer shooters that have grappling hooks that are really good. I referenced this in the anime episode, but there's that one Attack on Titan game that was a fan game on Unity that had a very cool grappling system that was like unique for the time.
yeah, I remember that. That thing it looked really fucking weird and was very creepy at the time because those
It
Titans
was-
looked really, really, really disturbing.
God, those mechanics were sick though. It was like
They were.
some of the best just movement mechanics I've ever seen in like a fan game, and so generally I think grappling hooks are very cool.
Yeah, I would agree. And like you think about like classic games, like you would recognize a point in like Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, and you're like, how do I get over there? And then you get the grapple hook, and you're like, holy crap, I can get over there now. And you go back, and you're reminded, like some
But
of that
I love
reveal
how
of
versatility
information.
has been an aspect of the grappling hook since, we've evolved past Zelda zipping you from one end to the other.
Yeah, and it's sort of a similar thought to the grappling hook, jetpacks and flight
Yes.
in games.
Love a
Like,
jetpack.
despite Anthem not being an overall very good game, I thought the flight mechanics were pretty fun.
Yeah.
but-
You tried Anthem? I didn't even try it.
Yeah, me and a few
didn't
friends
either.
picked it up and we played a good 15, 20 hours in it and had a good time with it. Like, playing with friends was pretty fun. There just
Okay.
was no plans for continued content beyond that, and the combat kind of grew a little stale. But
Yeah.
the flight was pretty fun. Each class flew a little differently. Like the big bulk tank was a bit
sure.
chunkier and like flew a little slower. And then there's a little zippy one that could like do dodges and stuff, and it was really
I like
fun.
robots and shit. I probably would have really liked that game in a certain scenario.
And more recently, I played the Star Ocean Divine Force, and that has a jetpack mechanic in it that you can use in combat to like boost yourself and do like power attacks into enemies. But you can also use it around the map, just unlimited, to give yourself glide boosts to travel across
Cool.
a map in like to get around, or get up into higher places with like double and triple jumps. Like you only get a few seconds of like flight time each time you boost or use it, but it just like opened up what you could do in combat, in exploration. So you were constantly looking for places to go because there might be something up there for you to collect
Right.
or get that might be useful. And just in general, flying around is fun. It's cool. And when you have technology or some sort of thing in a game that you don't have access to in real life, you can sort of get that feel of, it's sort of like the web
Right,
slinging in
yeah.
Spider-Man, right? Like, oh, this feels so good. Like, oh, I'm Iron Man, or I've got a jetpack, or a mech or whatever flying around. This is awesome.
I think I've talked about this a couple times. I think with Infernax, like there's a couple instances where a jetpack, when added to a game, completely changes the approach for the game. Like in Infernax, the first time you play through it, you're probably not using cheat codes or some of the really cool replay stuff that's available in it. But once you get to the second playthrough and you get the jetpack, suddenly you can skip all the really annoying platforming sections. And boy, does that incentivize just playing it again, because I was like, I don't know if I want to play this again. And then it was like, jetpack unlocked. And I'm like, well, that changes things.
Yeah, or even in Mario Sunshine Flood, when
Yeah.
you get different capabilities or expanded capabilities with
Flood is
movement
so
in
cool.
that. I know
Like the fact that you can shoot water and then slide faster anywhere is such a cool feature.
or get up higher when you got better capacity or whatever, like
Yeah.
upgrade the Flood. I know it's sort of a controversial take because there's a lot of people out there that hate Flood. They hate the movement options with Flood. Like Mario doesn't need extra tools to get around. He's already the best or whatever. And it's like,
I don't know, man. Sunshine's
it's pretty
pretty
good for
cool.
what it is. Sunshine's great. Is it?
I think
do
a
I think
lot
it's the
of
best
GameCube
one?
era
No,
games-
but it's still a fun time.
A lot of the GameCube era stuff is really getting a second life through things like, speed runs and people going back and appreciating like the risks that a lot of that library took. There's some cool stuff in there.
Yeah, and just in general, Mario's always been good about mixing up their movement.
Yes,
like,
Mario
adding
in
in
general.
Things
Mhm.
like Yoshi.
Yep.
Like, that
Yoshi was
changed
great.
everything. When you can ride a little dinosaur and then abandon him on a big cliff.
Love it.
Yeah. Love it. And I think, Zach, you've got this on your list too, but the Tanuki suit,
Uh-huh.
that first time you figure out how to fly in Super Mario Brothers 3 feels so cool. You're like, oh
It
man,
is
I
very,
can,
very fulfilling.
yeah, I can do anything now.
And then you get above where you can see and you're like, oh shit, there's a bunch of other shit here.
Yeah, like,
That's
oh,
the really cool part is whenever you first fly and you suddenly realize there's more to the level.
yeah, it's not just limited to what's on screen right now, like it had been
Right.
maybe previous games, or like there was nothing cluing you in to keep climbing up. It was just, if I fly up here, what's here? Oh, there's some clouds I can stand on. There's an extra star. There's a doorway to a secret level.
I love games that reward curiosity and exploration. That's why Elden Ring hit so hard for me.
Elden Ring, Breath of the Wild with their
Mm-hmm.
traversal options.
And fucking Elden Ring's traversal options are wild, especially with people using weapons.
Yeah.
Getting up onto places and being like, all right, I got a long ways to go and it's over there. Time to weapon combo in the air until I land where roughly I want to be.
Or if I hit this rock in this spot here, it flings you 100 feet in the air for some reason. We don't know why.
Breath of the Wild, the fact that you can, and I really hope this is like easier to pull off in Tears of the Kingdom. All the different like stopping times and keeping momentum and redirecting things, like that is awesome.
There is something so satisfying about doing the time stop, blasting it with a bunch of hits, climbing onto the rock, and then riding the rock across the land, and then
Hanging
leaping
on for
off of
dear
it, and then
life.
hang gliding.
Yep.
I've watched a really funny TikTok clip. I don't remember what it was. It was like a bunch of different game and anime characters got in a boat, and everybody was trying to make the boat go faster. And Link was like, "What are we trying to do?" And they're like, "We got to get there real quick." And he's like, "Oh, I got this." And he fucking like does the time stop and like stomps the shit out of the boat for like a long time. And they're like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He was like, "Just hang on to stuff." And they're like, "Why?" And he like releases it, and they just fucking jet. And he's like hanging onto the mast, and they're all like, "Ah!"
But in Breath of the Wild, the fact that you can get super high in the air and then glide, there are
Yeah.
a few things I love more than a glide in a video game, especially when the environment lays itself out in a really pretty way. That's super cool.
Yeah, really gets to
Yes.
the lay of the land, and it's a bold choice, game design wise. Like we're gonna give players the ability and access to get up so high that they can see what we've made from pretty much every conceivable angle,
Yep.
and they
Yep.
can approach it any way they really want to. Like that, there's you look at something like Assassin's Creed back in the day, and you could climb on a tall tower and see a wonderful vista or view and get a lay of the land. But you still had to jump off that tower and walk your ass over to wherever it was you wanted to go.
Yeah.
Some of the later games I know
gliding
introduced
eventually
other-
got it.
Yeah.
But that's still a scripted moment. Those were pre-planned points. And
Yeah.
most of the modern games we see, you get those shots like anywhere.
Right. And
Yep. Which,
Horizon Forbidden West introduced the glider
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
oh my gosh, that game,
that's gorgeous.
you fly around on that thing and you're just like, oh my goodness,
There's like
it
a
looks so good.
pterodactyl or something you could ride in that too. I played Forbidden West for like 20 minutes. I don't know why, but for some reason those games don't grip me as well as some of the other ones.
I'm
so
very
I don't
far
get
in
very
it.
far.
I'm in the end game and I need to just sit down and do it. Like I do so many freaking games where I'm like, I'm at 80% of the way. I'll take
I'm
my
done.
B. Thank you.
But
B is a
speaking
passing
of
grade.
speaking of gliding,
yeah.
I gotta talk about Fortnite with gliding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fortnite gliding, super cool.
It's how you get into the game. You drop out of the bus and you get to see the whole map.
And you can see
just
where other
glide to
people
where-
are trying to head too.
Yeah. Especially if you got the ass in your computer, you can see everybody land wherever they're gonna be, until they're like completely out of renderable distance. Period.
Right.
Just dropping in is not the only time. You can build a tall tower, jump off the end of it in some modes, and just glide. And then they have a bunch of other movement stuff you can stack with it. Like, they have so many different gadgets.
Fortnite movement has progressively gotten better and better and better, and it's really impressive the things they pull off.
Yeah, so one of my favorite movements in Fortnite's the baller. It's just a fucking gyro ball with a plunger gun on the end of it. And it works like a grapple. So you're just like rolling this ball at fucking, Mach fucking 5. You grapple a tree and you just bounce and swing yourself. Just woo!
It's like that hamster in Overwatch.
Yeah. You're just booking it.
That's
and
cool.
you can't take damage in it until it breaks. So you don't take damage. Like, you have almost no fear of it. Unless your ball breaks and you're really high in the air, then you're boned. You hit the ground and die.
Right.
But otherwise, like, you can use that thing to, like, bop yourself out of places and grapple your way around all sorts of weird shit.
That's
or just,
the
like,
benefit
hang
of
on to
Fortnite.
something and, like, dangle. Just kind of be like, okay, I'm a fruit now.
Yeah.
Nobody can get me right here. I'm just going to stay still.
Never
am an
mind
orange
the
and I
man
am not
behind the
ripe.
bubble.
But then they have things like, so they have bounce pad,
Yeah.
crash pad, and jump pad, which are 3 confusing things, but you can actually link them together. So bounce
Ooh.
pad, just you put it on any surface, horizontal, flat, vertical, like upside down, and you hit it and it acts like a bumper. Just boonk, just bumps you away from it. They have a crash pad, which is like the stunt person dive onto the
Yeah.
big balloon pad.
Oh, sure.
But it'll let you bounce really far and keep you safe when you hit the ground. Like, you won't take damage. And then they have the jump pad, which is like a giant, like a fucking high-tech trampoline that launches you in the air, and you pop out your glider and you glide.
Is that like those gymnastic launchers those launch
Oh,
pads
yeah.
for like leap tricks and stuff?
Kinda?
But super.
Super, yeah.
Not necessarily momentum based. Like when
Are
you
there
hit
vehicles?
A lot of vehicles.
So there's like driving around and stuff in Fortnite too. I wasn't
Yeah,
sure if
they-
that was just a PUBG thing or I don't
They
play.
they
any
added
of
it
these
kind of
games.
recently. So not every car, because the cars you can't drive have a boot on them, and you can see it physically. Like, you can't get in the car
Oh.
and drive around. It's booted.
Huh.
But that car might not be booted the next time you jump into a game. Because they randomize which ones you can and can't drive. But you can drive a semi-truck,
Interesting.
you can drive a car, you can drive a pickup truck and have
There's like
people hanging out on the
four-wheelers
back.
and stuff. We messed around with
Four-wheelers.
that. Yep.
Is the driving fun in Fortnite too, or is it?
It's pretty fun, especially because every car has a nitro boost.
Because it's just so easy to screw up driving in a game,
It
right?
feels fun. I personally only like to drive like a pickup truck because it can drive on grass.
Right. Well, speaking
Without-
of driving, the the whole point of Rocket League is that it has good movement.
Yeah.
Oh man.
What
yeah,
little
like
Rocket
Rocket
League
League.
I've
Talk
played? I've
about
played like 4
perfecting
matches.
video game movement. Holy crap.
Yeah, I've only played like 4 matches, but the whole time I'm like, man, this is really responsive, really tight.
The things you can do in Rocket League are incredible.
People do some cool stuff.
Yeah.
And then other vehicles and like the Batmobile in Arkham Knight, I thought was a lot of fun. I know not everyone agrees, but there was something really exciting and satisfying about driving the Batmobile. But then you just if you have a controller driving in Cyberpunk or like LA Noire, there is like a satisfaction in unlocking a cool sports car or like the Akira
Yeah.
bike or something in like these open world games that have different cars for you to get access to. Getting a cool car and driving it around a world that just freely is a lot of fun, especially if the driving is fun.
There's
The
a whole
reason why I
subset of people
say
who just
with a
thrive
controller,
in GTA.
yeah, one of the reasons I say with a controller specifically in some games is keyboard and mouse doesn't always translate well to the subtleties of driving. I remember playing LA Noire on PC, and eventually I gave up and only ever had my partner drive, because if you hit left, it was full left. There was no feathering it. It was just full 90-degree left turn right now, the moment you push the button, and it was just you're like, I'm a policeman, just into all the other cars.
Have you ever gotten to play with those racing rigs?
At like arcades and stuff, I've done some
Yeah.
driving games.
That's something we had at Black Ice that was really impressive, because I wasn't very good at it, but we had players who would come in and that was the only way they played. And so something like Gran Turismo or Forza Horizon, those games translate exceptionally well to
Right.
these steering wheel rigs and stuff and the shifting and all that. And it's really impressive how technical that stuff can get.
Yeah, I haven't done much driving. I think the last driving game I put a lot of time into was like Need for Speed Underground 2, so it's been a hot minute.
Some of
I
those are
played
really
a
good.
ton of the Burnout games, like Burnout 3
Yeah.
and 4 on PlayStation 2. Those were fun.
But even just like driving around and like that's the only thing I would do when I played GTA is just drive. And, you know, it's fun to like follow traffic laws and stuff in those games.
Yeah. In almost like the opposite sort of mindset, though, like something I never thought I would like do in a video game is while playing Red Dead Redemption 2, I would just go for walks. Because there's just so much to see. You just get engrossed in this world and you'll just be like, I'm just going to go for a hike. And you're just like walking along this road, seeing things, saying hi to people.
Yep.
It's such an engrossing world that Rockstar developed for Red Dead Redemption 2. And it's just sort of nice to walk in that game. It's weird. Like,
I tell you what, if it wasn't for the nightmare creatures living in the forest, Sons of the Forest would be very similar. Because I like screwed up the game somehow or something because it's in early access. And so none of the monsters were spawning outside of a very particular location. And so I was just running around the island just on a nature hike. And it was beautiful.
Beautiful cannibal home.
Yeah, you know. There's
make
one
sure it
part of
looks
it
nice.
that's scary as hell, but the part I was in was really nice and pleasant. It's like birds and stuff.
yeah. I think the last one to really like break into is one that you have, Alex, and that's like mounts in games.
Yeah,
and, like,
generally. Mhm.
horses, things that you ride. And I think the
Yoshi.
big one for me as a kid was gaining surf in Pokemon.
Yep.
Like the idea of riding your water Pokemon across the ocean to to islands and to get like legendary like Pokemon, like it was such an exciting thing, and it opened up traversal and new paths and new areas of the map, and you could backtrack easier, and just like you're riding on your Blastoise across the ocean, and there's just like this sense of adventure to it that I had as a child, and like choosing which Pokemon to teach that move to as well felt important because you couldn't delete it once you taught it, so it was
Right.
sort of a big deal once you
It's a
put
big
it on
decision.
there. But you know, as they developed the remakes of Silver and Gold, the sprite of your Pokemon was actually the one on screen. It wasn't just a generic swim Pokemon.
Right,
It was
It wasn't just Lapras that
Yeah.
you may or may not have
Yeah.
ever had in the
Yeah.
game.
but it was just always like a really cool sense of adventure to ride your Pokemon. You had the bicycle and stuff, but nothing made me feel more attached to a Pokemon than having it follow me around or riding it across the ocean as a 10-year-old.
But something I've always really been intrigued by is just the amount of different types of mounts in MMOs. Something like Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV and what have you. Like, I would argue that might be one of the most appealing parts of the game because you'd go through these really hard quests and be able to ride a dragon
Yeah.
or like a cool demon horse or a fat cat in Final Fantasy XIV. And so like I love that sort of thing as a cosmetic choice, right? Like you're going into battle on your steed.
Yeah.
And just having different types of mounts aside from horses, I've always thought was interesting. I really liked the Warhammer novels back in the day, and there's the Malice Darkblade Drukai character who rode a giant lizard that ate horses. So his mount ate other mounts. It was like a really cool, fun concept for like an anti-hero. And
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But just like in general, the sheer number of games that use horse as a mode of travel that's faster to get places. You know, The Witcher, Red Dead Redemption, Legend of
Breath of the
Zelda. Like
Red Dead.
it's just so cool.
Rust.
Yeah,
Rust.
just like a horse is a big deal in video games in a way that it hasn't been for most people for a long time.
As far as like by comparison to real life,
Right.
yeah.
But it is sort of like this like bygone era, this reach into this experience, even just the taste of like riding a horse across feudal Japan
Yeah.
in Ghost of Tsushima is an experience.
That's
It's
super cool.
beautiful and it's cool, and you get to like select a horse in some games and name it and take care of it, and it becomes a companion in a lot of ways, in a way that a car might not, or a glider.
Right. Yeah.
Did you ride Were you able to ride a horse for a while in Phantom Pain?
Yeah, there's a horse in Pain, I think.
That's right. Yeah, because I mean, Metal Gear's movement's all about sneaking, crawling, cardboard boxing. But you get that little bit of time in the open world of Phantom Pain that you're on a horse. Just
Can't you slide down a hill in the box?
there's so many weird things you can do that are like a lot of people don't do.
There's another
That's a
mode
game
of
I
travel.
need to
Cardboard
build
box.
myself up to.
Well, because in 4 they added the ability to use rusted shot up barrels like cardboard boxes, and you could flip it sideways and roll.
Hilarious.
And you could, if you caught somebody off guard, you could roll and knock their ass out and get out of your barrel and like fucking loot them and like tie them up.
That's
and
a
get
retro
back in your
game I need
barrel and
to
keep rolling.
add to my Steam Deck list is Metal Gear Solid 2, because that's the next one on my... Because I streamed the entirety of the first one. At some point, I got to sit down and stream you all the entirety of the second one.
I didn't even think about just the walking mechanic in Death Stranding.
Yeah.
Like
the
that
whole system
The
in
whole
itself.
game is how do we gamify walking?
Yep.
And he did it. Mad lad.
But there are a lot of games where movement's the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, like,
Super
how
Meat Boy.
expressive that can be and how relaxing it can be.
Portals.
Splitgate was really cool.
Yeah.
That's still going strong. People still play that.
It is. It's actually been picking up steam lately. I've been like, this. I thought this was just going to be a weird little niche, like early access type thing forever, and it like has got some good popularity.
Yeah, I was really impressed when it first hit early access. I could only imagine how much I would like it now.
Is there anything, like, last couple of things, because we've been going for a little bit, and I do have a bonus segment for you guys that I think is going to be a lot of fun.
Last little like rapid fire things I can think of is, like you get movement, like I brought up horses in Rust, like the helicopters in Rust. There's 2 kinds, like the little mini gyrocopter, which you find a lot of players use because they're quick and small. But then they have this giant big rust bucket that's just bulky and funky, but you can haul 20, 30 people in it.
Sick.
It's just funky and hard to fly. The flying is very difficult until you get very used to it. Unless you're like a pro airplane, like gyro game type player, like it's not an easy task.
And that sort of reminds me of, like, the movement options in, like, Far Cry or Just Cause.
Oh,
Yes.
sure.
Where
Really
you
similar
have
to that
access
sort of-
to all these different vehicles and gliders and parachutes and things that you can do some fun stuff in those games.
And then I guess the only other thing that I would tack on real quick is like abilities in games, because you get like Kingdom Hearts, like the triangle, like reflex command, whatever it was actually called, being able to like jet yourself across fucking battlefields and like change position, like cinematic.
Oh
battle.
yeah,
Because that would just
getting glide in the, like, even the first Kingdom Hearts is so
That was
fun.
fun. Yep.
I forgot about that actually. This whole
Treasures
time I
and stuff.
forgot
Like,
about
you
you
get
could do
glide
that.
and you're like, holy crap, I can do anything now. You feel so powerful when you can just basically fly.
Yeah, and then like back down, because we tapped on it just briefly when we were talking about grapples, but it's like the first thing that came to mind was like the abilities of movement for like characters in like Smite.
Yep.
Because my play style is not necessarily normal or meta. I like using most of the things that I play in that game specifically to just be a harassy bastard
Right.
until everybody freaks out and loses their composure, and then we can like capitalize on things. But for instance, Scylla, it's a mage god. You can use her third ability power, which pops up a little dog and looks around. But you can teleport to it. You can just pull yourself to that dog location. And then they have like blink stones. So when you're in like places with lots of walls, you can blink through a wall, throw your dog somewhere, wait for the enemy to show up, pop the enemy with the power, and then port yourself back to your dog and just fucking keep on rolling through stuff.
There's some really cool, like, MOBA movement in Smite. I mean, characters like Janice, who's a teleport portal wizard guy.
Yep.
There's all sorts of characters that leap beyond walls. I mean, you can fly in that game with even early characters like Thor. I like Smite a lot. We should play more Smite. I always say this about Smite, but we should play more Smite.
We've been playing a lot. Our buddy Aces is back in our fold of stuff, and his ass is on Hawaii time, so he plays all fucking night long. Like after we're all done playing like Destiny or whatever, like he plays Smite till like I wake up. because
I
it's-
always pop in every now and again just to see the new gods and stuff. But the last like movement thing I want to give a really specific mention to is just dashing in any video game, especially if you can chain that with like a jump to get more momentum or multiple dashes in a row.
Yeah, like a
I love
dodge
that.
or a dash. Like Hades
Yeah.
has a really
Yeah,
good
well, I'm
dodge
thinking
dash
things like
mechanic.
Mega Man X. Some of the Castlevanias have a straight up dash. A lot of the 2D platformers that echo that style, like just the movement in a classic Mega Man X, where you dash and jump, and you're faster with that than just a regular dash. Like all of that stuff is very cool to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Hollow Knight is my
Hollow
first
Knight,
pick
yeah.
in that all the time because it feels so good to move around in that game.
So one last little comment. Are we all in agreement that one mode of travel that pretty much almost always sucks in video games is swimming?
Yeah,
Like, all momentum
there's a couple
comes to a
games I can
crawl.
mention.
Like,
Like Yooka-Laylee, Impossible Lair has a pretty good swimming mechanic.
it's just so hard because you want it to feel floaty and slow
Yeah.
and sluggish like water does, but all of your momentum just immediately, like compared to other levels, like I know very few people that are like, oh yes, a water level.
I'm in total agreement with that, unless you put Minecraft in it. Because in Minecraft, water travel is like the fucking creme de la creme.
Really?
Yeah, because okay, so back when we played a lot,
Yeah.
water sucked. You couldn't move through water much. Now they added an actual swimming thing. So when you go into water, you crouch button and you go into swim mode and you move fast.
Huh.
But then they also have something to do with tridents. I'm guessing it's an enchant power. I can't remember to fucking save my life because I haven't used it like properly. But there's a thing where you can like yeet like a copy of your trident, and you yeet your fucking self all the way through the water. Like you need to go to the other side of a massive fucking ocean. You just get in the water, and just. And
I've seen
when
a
it wears
few
off, you
games,
just
though.
do it again.
Where they really
Because-
try to focus in on like underwater stuff. Because what was that? Sea of Songs by Insomniac is like a little tiny Metroidvania they made. This new one called Pronte just came out, is entirely underwater, I believe.
There's a really popular one too.
Subnautica?
Subnautica is one that
Subnautica is
I think has
very
handled
much
it well.
underwater.
It's just in general, swimming in video games is not fun.
Yeah. In the opposite of
Usually
a
you
grappling
can't
hook.
even
Those are the-
swim. It's
those
like,
are
oh,
the
you're
two
dead.
different
That's
things.
water.
Yeah. Oh, I'm Sonic. Forget about it. Water.
hate water levels in Sonic.
But I've got a bonus segment for you guys, and I think
Ooh,
this
here
is
we
going to be
go.
a lot of fun.
These are
I've
always
called
fun.
it travel expenses.
Uh-huh.
I've taken some video game modes of travel, some popular ones, and did some research and found the costs of those modes of travel.
Oh.
So what basically the game that you guys are going to try and do is who can get closest. I don't even care if you're over or just whoever can get closest will win the point or whatever. I've got a few modes of travel here. And you're going to guess if there's an upfront cost and then the annual cost total. So like 1 year of ownership of this thing, how much does it cost to own and operate and have this as a mode of travel?
So, for example, if we're thinking horses, you got to factor in like feed and space
Right.
and all that.
And
Okay.
and the upfront cost of buying a horse,
Okay.
which is perfect because the first one is horse.
So, me being a rural person, I know that the upfront cost can vary wildly. What type of horse we talking here?
I just took like an average.
Okay, regular old horse.
So we're not talking like high level like racing horse that
No.
could be like a few $1 million. We're just talking
Or
about
like pawn shop
I'm gonna ride this
auction
horse into town.
Regular horse, a median. How much would a horse be?
They're expensive.
I'm gonna say $2,000 to just initially purchase an average horse intended for riding.
And then
I'm
what?
gonna say something more like 4 or 5.
What about the annual costs?
Ooh, the annual. I'm gonna say it's like 15 grand.
I'm gonna say it's like 40.
Okay, so what is your total guess? Both numbers combined.
What did I say?
45 grand.
45 grand. And I think
Did I
you
say-
said 2 and 15.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say 17,000 total.
Okay. The upfront cost of the average horse $9,000.
What?
Yep. I fucking thought I lowballed it, but damn, I didn't think it was that much.
The annual cost, and granted, this is just what I've grabbed in a quick research. This could be wildly off and wildly changed depending on where you are and what your needs are. But what I found was the annual cost was $8,000, bringing the total to $17,000. Alex, you
Hot
freaking
damn.
nailed it.
I got there exactly. Hell yeah. Horse.
So the next one also is going to be sort of like averaged, generalized, because it can vary wildly, but a sports car.
Ooh. Now
Also a
here's
popular,
where things-
popular mode of transportation in video games. Getting
Here's
a cool
where things
sports car.
flip, in my opinion. I think the annual cost and the upkeep of a sports car is going to be way cheaper than the upfront cost.
I think it's the other way.
Really?
Yeah.
It's just,
So we're
it's just
talking-
annual 1 year, not total lifespan.
No.
But
No, are we talking like sports cars like Lamborghini land, or are we talking like
we're
viable
talking
by like your average person, but it's still a sports car?
high end, but not like, and luxury, but not like the top of the top. Like we're not F1 racing or like
This is
one
a
of a
consumer
kind type
level-
things. This is definitely like achievable by a person.
Okay, so I'm going to say 40,000 upfront and 4,000 annual for a total of 44,000 average.
And I'm gonna say 70,000 up front with a total of 3,000 annual for like $73,000.
Okay. Upfront cost of of the average sports car is $100,000.
No way.
I told you it was gonna be higher in the front end.
Holy shit, those are nice cars.
The annual expenses, this is increased insurance, probably higher grade of fuel to keep the engine
I didn't
clean.
even fucking think about fuel and insurance.
Insurance is a big
because
part of it.
sports cars tend to be lower production models. Getting parts for them tend to be specialized and more expensive.
Right,
The annual
yeah.
cost is $9,700. Jeez. Total of $109,000 on average.
Or you can spend $10 for a PS4 copy of Gran Turismo 7.
So Zach takes this one, who was still like $30,000 under. Now
I
this
was
one,
thinking of things like a Mitsubishi Lancer sports car.
the next one is interesting, and the reason I pulled this one is I was thinking of the fast travel in Spider-Man, where you just take the subway.
Oh,
The
sure.
New York City subway. What do you think is the annual cost of using the New York City subway as your mode of transportation?
I imagine we're not thinking about the upfront cost of buying a subway.
You do not need to buy a subway
$5 foot long
to ride the
$6?
subway.
We're in a deep, troubling situation with inflation. Annual
I'm going to take
cost
my
for the
sandwich
subway?
to work.
I'm going to say $300.
$300 like total.
Are we talking like a regular subscription to like a New
this
York
is
subway?
you use it like daily.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to say 300.
I'm gonna say 1,200.
All right. Upfront cost of a subway is $0. You don't need to purchase a subway; it's already there. You can buy a monthly pass, like a 1 month pass, unlimited rides, and for 12 months of that is $1,524. So Zach took this one too.
I was thinking $100 a month ish.
All right. The
See, that
final
seems high
one,
for me. I feel like you can get away with far cheaper than that.
Well,
Probably.
I compared it to like the DC Metro because if you buy
Oh,
a day
okay.
pass there, it's $30, but you could probably buy a month pass in bulk for much cheaper. I mean, much cheaper
Yeah.
on the overall,
Is
but still
$30
expensive.
to ride the subway for a day?
Like that's unlimited, but otherwise it's like $3 per stop, and that's going in and getting out. So
Oof.
that's 3
Yeesh.
in, 3 out.
gross.
So it's always like if you're gonna take more than 2 subway fucking stops, like you
I
just buy the
just
whole
get the
fucking
day
day
pass.
pass.
Yeah.
I felt so fortunate to have most of my metro experience being in the Twin Cities, where everything is connected under one big umbrella. MDOT, like MN Department of Transportation, kind of runs everything and coordinates it all. And you buy one ticket, and it's good for unlimited rides for 2.5 hours. And it's like unlimited rides, unlimited stops for 2.5 hours, and it was like $2.
Yeah.
And you could buy a monthly pass that would save you on average like $500 if you bought it for $150, $200.
Right.
And again, unlimited stops, unlimited rides to anywhere in like not just the Twin Cities, but almost all of its suburbs too. It's
That's
a
cool.
wildly cohesive and well plotted and
That sounds like I have a
affordable
lot of,
transportation option. Like as
I
a poor
have-
college student, it was perfect.
Yeah. I have no experience when it comes to public transportation. I have a lot of anxiety when I'm like on a bus or a subway or something.
That's what
Just
the
because
3DS
I'm just
for.
not used to it, man.
That's what the 3DS was for. Just like I'm gonna ignore everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I didn't have any problem with it, and I walked a lot of places during that time. But yeah, we had a good, and it was culture shock. Well, not culture shock, but it was just sort of sticker shock when I went to Chicago for C2E2,
Sure.
and I got on a bus, and the ticket I bought was good for that one bus and that one stop, and to get to where I needed to go was a second bus who was owned by a different private company, so my ticket wasn't good for that bus.
Right.
And I was like, what is happening? It was like $12 to get to get there. And I'm like, tomorrow I'm walking. This is ridiculous.
I'll just hoof it.
So, all right. So I've got one more here, the final one. And you guys better appreciate
Jetpack.
what I did.
Airplanes.
It's jetpack.
Yeah.
And
Like a water
did-
jetpack?
I had to do some digging for some of this information. And I had to sit down and do like 10 to 15 minutes worth of math
Yes.
to calculate this.
Joe bleeds for this podcast.
So what do you think is the upfront cost of a jetpack?
Is it going to be
Because
less
it's
than a
dummy
sports car?
special, so it's gonna have to be something like 80, 90 grand.
Right, but is it more complex and expensive than an average sports car based on our previous answer of 100K?
I'm
just
thinking
buy
it's in
one?
the same ballpark.
Now we're talking about the ones that like has a water intake and you
No,
like,
I'm talking about straight up pilotable jetpacks that are legal in some places
Oh.
to just use.
that's different. I'm gonna say this sumbitch is like $425,000 up front.
You know what? I might,
It might
be
be
on board with that.
over $1 million, to be honest. Like this is a very specific piece of tech. Is there an annual cost for this one as well, Joe?
Yes. This is where I
yeah.
had to do all the math.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably fucking jet fuel.
You'll be surprised.
I'm gonna say 200,000.
Okay. What do you got, Zach, for the upfront cost of a jetpack?
You know what? I'm gonna upfront it at something like 200K. I'll go on the low side here.
Ooh,
I'm gonna
okay.
say upfront like
Okay.
200K.
Interesting.
So I found a jetpack that has you depending on the engine that you buy, you can run. It can run kerosene or diesel.
What?
Why? What the fuck would even still try to run kerosene these days?
I don't know. I don't know. But
That
that's
shit's
what it was
for like
listed.
80-year-olds on a farm trying to light lanterns in the middle of summer.
This is just the information that I found on one specific like model of jetpack.
Or for this same target audience that wants to go out with a bang.
Yeah. So I used diesel
Okay.
because I could look that up. Local diesel for me here in this area is $3.90 per gallon.
Uh-huh.
With that information, how much do you think the annual cost of a jetpack is?
Well, considering that, I'm gonna say that it's diesel. Let's see.
Are we using the jetpack
I'm gonna
every
say
day?
$600.
Yes,
I'm gonna change my answer.
assuming you're using this for your daily commute of 20 miles one way.
I'm gonna say $800.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna add in like an annual of like I don't know what we're going like 5 gallons at fucking $5. I'm gonna throw somewhere in the fucking ballpark of like $2,000. Not even no, probably.
Did
probably
we?
more than
We
that. I'm
haven't
gonna say,
covered the
like,
upfront
$3,000.
cost yet, have we?
Yeah, that's what we were trying to. Well, we
No,
haven't
we're-
said what.
We haven't.
You
that
put
hasn't
in
been
your
revealed
bets.
to
I
us.
don't know if I've told you yet.
Yeah,
We
I was saying
we've established
200
that it's a diesel
Yeah.
annual cost. That's what we know, and that
I'm
it's a
saying
jetpack.
$200,000 plus like fucking $8,000 in gas.
Okay. Locked in your answers.
Uh-huh.
The upfront cost of this jetpack that I looked at was $340,000.
Oh, I'm pretty close.
So this is where all the math comes in. If a gallon of diesel is $3.90 and it has a tank capacity of 5.8 gallons, that's $22.62 per tank, and that's 10 minutes of flight time.
Oh.
That means an hour of flight time costs $135.72.
I think Alex got this.
It can go 120 miles per hour.
Holy shit.
If you have a 20-mile one-way daily commute, that roughly equals 10,400 annual miles via jetpack. 10,400 annual miles at 120 miles per hour equals 86.66 hours per year, which results in $11,762 of annual fuel costs for going
I was
to work
close on that.
with your jetpack.
Now, does it? Here's the advantage of being on a jetpack, though. Say you work in a metropolitan area, and your job is on the 82nd floor, and it takes you 40 minutes because of all the just traffic to get to work. They could just put a little perch on there, like a birdhouse.
Just land on the
fly
helicopter
up
pad
there,
on the roof.
pop in there, go to work. I feel like if you could afford a jetpack, you probably don't need to go to work, though.
Probably. You could probably work from your house.
You probably don't have to work at all at that point.
So the total is $351,762.
I mean, I still think I beat you because I'm at 425, 800.
Yeah, I think you just beat me by like 20 grand.
Yes.
That was good though. We were like on either side of it. Just
Which I think means we have a tie, but I don't have a tiebreaker. But yeah, I was like thinking about this. I'm like, well, I wonder what the cost would be of popular modes of transportation in video games to have in real life. And of course, like, you know, horse and sports car and the subway are pretty. But then I was like, oh, can you get a jetpack? Could just like have a jetpack? And I started looking into it, and I couldn't find any information on the annual cost of a jetpack, just the like upfront cost. So then I had to find the fuel capacity, how fast it flew. Like, so I had to grab all these bits of information and do a bunch of math to get that answer. And I'm glad
now,
I
if
did.
you wanted to fly at a fraction of the cost, you can get a wingsuit for like $1,500.
Yeah, but how do you get high?
Well, that's
Slingshot.
well, depending on what state you're in. That was my next thought is, well, how much is one of those squirrel suits?
But yeah, that was our segment, travel expenses.
Fun.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, that was cool. Great topic this week, man.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Of course, we want to thank everybody for coming around and listening to us here on the Forever Classic podcast. And if you want to check us out, you know, be sure to look us up on Twitter, Patreon, catch our YouTube, which we've been populating a lot more recently, and it's got some really good stuff there. We've got quite a few views on some things, which spiked surprisingly. Not because we were surprised, but we just didn't have a lot on our YouTube. So cool, thanks algorithm.
Yeah. Reese versus the algorithm. Reese is winning so far.
Reese is like fucking coming in with sucker punches on that thing.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll take it. You know, we're out there on so much of the different social media. You can catch our podcast, the one that you're listening to now, wherever you're listening to it, on pretty much anything. And if not, tell us, because it should be on pretty much everything. Question mark?
As far as I know.
There's a bunch of weird corner shit that we might not have, but that's different. We want to thank you. Say we love you. You're great. Come back for more. Tell us if you want us to do some cool stuff, because, you know, we're always open to ideas and we're chatty.
Do you own a jetpack and know how much it costs annually and I'm way off? Let me know.
And would like to have us over for dinner?
I would be terrified. Don't put me 100 feet in the air piloting.
I would absolutely do those water jetpack things. I feel like that's a reasonable goal.
You know what? I'm not overly scared of heights. I don't like the going down part.
Yeah, see,
I'm
I
not
guess
scared of heights either. I'm scared of my ability to pilot a jetpack.
I'm not overly
Fair.
terrified of mine. I think I would do okay.
Because I don't think I would do, like, skydiving. I could probably be convinced, but I'd be afraid I'd muck it up somehow.
Skydiving,
Like, jump
I would
at a
do.
weird angle or something.
Skydiving, you just fall. I
Sure.
can do that. But if survival is dependent upon my ability to steer in the air, count me out. I don't even like steering on the ground. I don't like
For
driving.
skydiving, I'd be terrified. I'd like black out halfway through, just unconscious.
You're just like on the ground. You're on the ground. Woo! That was fun.
But yeah,
Wow.
we've got a lot of cool stuff planned, and now that I've moved again and have like a full battle station, like there's some really cool stuff coming on the website side.
Yep. That, and we're working on reviving some Twitch stuff, but that's like
Yeah.
some stuff in the works because we've been so fucking busy.
Well, and also it's been winter in Minnesota, so any of the really cool like tournaments and stuff have been on hiatus for me because I don't want to drive through the like freezing snow 3 hours away to maybe set up at a tournament. Like I want to make sure it's a definite.
Just
Yeah,
hop
you
on your
want-
snowmobile, Alex, and head on
hate
down.
those snowmobiles. They smell like
Yeah, you
burnt
want
hair.
definites? I got fucking like decade and change old equipment.
Yeah, right.
So-
Thankfully all of my equipment here for streaming is actually pretty okay. I need a new camera one of these days, but
There you
Yeah.
go. Well, thanks for listening, everybody.
mhm.
Yeah.
Bye.